Welcome to the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast. This is a show about the past, present, and future of animation and all things related, hosted by former Disney animators, directors, and authors Tom Bancroft and Tony Bancroft. This podcast is sponsored by TaughtByAPro.com, the place on the web to watch art instruction videos by the top pros in comics, animation, character design, and concept art. In our second interview with the legendary animator Glen Keane, the Bancrofts reveal a side of Glen you may not have heard of before. What drives Glen to create the passionate characters and performances that have made Ariel, the Beast, Aladdin, Tarzan, and Pocahontas so memorable? The answer may surprise you. And now, here's the Bancroft Brothers.
And thank you, Scott, and welcome back to another Bancroft Brothers animation podcast.
Oh,
Tony,
yeah.
how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It is sweltering hot here in California. I know you're in Nashville, so you don't have the
Little
luxury.
jealous. Little jealous of that.
I know you're competing with like snow and cold and things like that. Poor Tom.
Yeah, we actually had snow about a week ago. It wasn't bad. It melted off pretty quick, but, you know, it's been a lighter winter than we normally have, so I'm happy.
But we're rocking and rolling, doing some animation together. We've talked on the podcast before about doing this 2D animation project together. So
yeah.
that's keeping you warm at night, animating away. Are you enjoying that?
Yeah. No, I'm sleeping good, and I'm really behind on my deadlines.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I know. You didn't hear that. Don't tell the boss.
We'll talk offline. Okay. So tonight, though, well, first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about our podcast sponsors. We're very, very happy to have the generosity and support of Stuart Ng Books. Thank you, Stuart, for sponsoring the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast. That's stuartngbooks.com. Go there if you want to buy all kinds of books. And actually, they have a great new book by Glen Keane, which we're going to be talking about very soon, called Adam Raccoon. And that series is at Stuart Ng Books. And we're going to talk more about that later. But also any kind of European books, any kind of artwork, Stuart Ng has it. They have a brick and mortar store, but also go online and you'll get all kinds of savings too.
And Tony, second to that, we also have, once again, the wonderful Sketch Wallet as a sponsor.
Yes.
And thank you, Ralph, for sponsoring, but that's a beautiful leather-bound wallet. Put your credit cards in there, but also there's a moleskin sketchbook in there and a little pencil with a nice, beautiful logo on it, and you could draw to your heart's content even while getting your car washed.
Why not? That's when I like to draw, or at the DMV. Did you say it's made out of moleskin?
No.
Is that real mole flesh on it?
I said the sketchbook was a moleskin.
Moleskin.
There's a way to say it. I've heard people say it with the moleskine.
I thought it was just moleskin. No?
I did too, but I think it's foreign, and so therefore it has a slightly different...
Therefore we are butchering the name. Okay.
Yeah.
But thank you, and those that are interested in drawing and having things, Sketchpad on the go with you, get a Sketch Wallet. They're awesome. Sketch Wallet. Okay.
Yes.
Today...
Let's get down to it, Tony.
I know. I am chomping at the bit. I gotta say, this is a very exciting thing that we've had on the books for a while, and it took a little while to set up, but we're very excited about it because this kind of echoes back to our childhood in a lot of ways, the subject that we're going to get into, but it also is something that's very near and dear to yours and my heart. I know that. So,
amen, brother.
First, for our audience, for you guys out there listening at home, this is a very different episode of the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast that we want to get into today. We're going to explore how faith can be evidenced in a career in the animation industry. We get a lot of people asking us, knowing that we are Christians, Tom and I, what it is to be a Christian in the animation industry. So we're going to dive a little bit into that today. And for us, Tom and I, it really means striving to live a life using our talents and abilities that God gave us and tell stories through the art of animation that we do. And we do that on the shoulders of many who have come before us. Today, we're honored to host a person Tom and I, and many of you at home, have looked up to for many, many years. Today, we talk with our special guest, Glen Keane, not just about art and animation, but also his faith and how that affects his work and life. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, Glen.
Glen Keane.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Great to have you back. This is your second time with us, right?
It's like an anniversary.
I know. I really, really enjoyed my first time. So this is such a cool thing that you guys invited me back again.
It's nice when a guest kind of begs to be on the show, and thank you for that.
I'd go to the North Pole to be on this show.
Well, and just so everybody knows, he did go out of his way. He went to Tony's house. They're recording together, Tony and him, and I'm over in Nashville, so I feel a little left out.
Next time at your place.
Yeah,
Thomas,
next time
I want to be there.
Totally think we need to do that. And Glenn met my 2 cheerleading daughters, Emma and Ellie, and just a minute ago, and maybe we could work out a little routine, maybe a little cheer routine.
Yeah, animating twins is a really cost-saving thing. You don't have to come up with 2 designs, different designs. Though I'm sure Emma and Ellie would say that's not true.
No, they would be really upset by that statement.
But for those that don't know, Glen Keane, of course, we talk about him on every podcast, and we really do. I'm going to embarrass Tom and I here for a moment because it's kind of a thing that we do on the podcast where we always say Glen Keane at least once. Okay, just for
we do.
For
and then we go ding 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 ding, like it's like a special word of the day.
Right. It would be like saying vivacious whenever Tom said vivacious, and then we celebrate that. But for us in the podcast, it's
a good
Keane.
word, Tom. I like that.
I use it a lot. It's amazing.
So to actually have Glen Keane on the podcast, we're going to be saying his name quite a bit on the podcast, so that'll add extra fun for those at home that wants to go ding 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 every time we say his name.
Yeah. So, if it was a drinking thing, people would be on the floor this episode, and crashing their cars as they listen.
But it's quite the opposite of that, thankfully, because we're going to talk a little bit about what kind of started this for us is that Green Egg Media, which is a new Christian publisher, just came out with a series of books that they reprinted, and they're Glen Keane's books, The Adventures of Adam Raccoon. And for those that don't know, Glen originally released these in 1987 through 1995. It was a whole series that you did of 8 books that came out during that time period. And it was while Glen was working at Disney Studios. And Tom and I, we often talk about, what it is to be an artist and also work in animation. You kind of want to have your pet projects, right? You want to have these things that you do in the evening and stuff like that. And it's good to have those pet projects. And for you, I guess this kind of was that. But I'm interested to know why, while you were creating Ariel, Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, what inspired this passion project of Adam Raccoon? What was the roots of it?
Well, for me, it was, it really happened very naturally. When I started at Disney, I just wanted to be an artist. And there was really, my faith was something that, was something that I wore maybe when I was a kid growing up. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a Catholic family, and once I finally got out of school there, I went to a Jesuit high school. It was all boys school, Brophy Prep in Phoenix. But then when I got to Cal Arts, it was like, God who? It's like I really didn't think at all about faith, and yet when I look back on that, the path that I was taking, the best things were happening to me, and I wasn't even aware of the gift that was happening. That I see God's hand in guiding me, like even getting to Cal Arts. I dropped my portfolio off to get in the School of Painting. It was sent to the wrong school by accident. I was accepted into animation. I remember calling the school. They didn't call it animation. They called it film graphics. Oh, right. And I called and I said, hey, there's a mistake. I want to get in the School of Painting, and I've accepted into the School of Film Graphics. What is that? And the lady there at the admission said, well, yes, this is the only way you're going to come to this school is through film graphics. I said, yeah, but what is it? Well, it's Actually, I have no idea. But if
It was that new.
This is the only way you're going to get here. Okay, well, if I can just take a second in painting, and I guess you could do that. So anyway, I ended up there, and then just coincidentally, that was at that moment that the 9 old men were realizing that they needed to pass the art form on.
Right?
Yeah. And I came into Disney at 20 years old, and I mean, this was an incredible gift. Just an incredible moment in my life where I remember, Ollie was saying, our job is to pour into you everything that we know. And I know that you're not ready for it. So take notes because someday you're going to read those notes and you'll understand what we're saying. So that's what I did. I mean, I just was constantly putting notes on my desk, and I've got all those notes now. And it's true. You keep relearning those things in a deeper way the longer you've been doing it. But something happened to me on that first several months at Disney. You went through a 4-week period where you had to animate a short little film, and based on that, if they liked that, then you were given another 4 weeks, and if that was accepted from the review board, then you were finally hired. So I was hired, but there was this sense of you were pretty nervous about your future because basically you knew nothing. I mean, humility really is about knowing you know nothing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like standing behind Eric Larson's desk, looking over his shoulder as he draws over what you thought was your best drawing. Because all the way through high school, you were better than all the other artists. Right. And suddenly there you are. And here's this old gentleman just drawing. Well, Glenn, let's take a look at Silhouette. It's like, Silhouette? What are you talking about? And he would suddenly draw these beautiful drawings, and you just felt, just terrible. But it was a wonderful pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly the way I taught Tony, by the way.
Yeah. I just stood over his shoulder while he drew over my drawings. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he likes to
What
think.
a brother. Man.
Yeah. I'm a giver. But anyway, continue. I don't want to. You're going somewhere with that, I think. That's going good.
I wore my homage to Eric Larson today.
Oh, yeah. Hey, there's the 101 Dalmatians on your socks.
I do.
Very nice. Don't show me your underwear.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
That's
why
don't
don't you take your
call
pants
him.
down to show them your socks, Tony?
I just thought of that and it came to me. I had to show Glenn my socks. I don't know why.
They pull up from the bottom. You don't have to take your pants off to show them. Yeah.
Anyway, so at that time, though, there was this, I guess I'd say, a sense of competition among the young people that were there at the studio.
Yeah.
And a feeling of strength in numbers, like if you were part of the group, you felt like maybe you had a chance to stay. And we would all get together at the lunch table at the cafeteria at Disney. And, I knew less than anybody there. I mean, I really knew less about animation than anybody there who had always wanted to be an animator. And during lunch, I would notice that there was one guy that was not with us. It was Ron Husband. He was a guy who was a football player from Las Vegas, Nevada. And he had joined the studio as a trainee, and Ron was sitting over on a park bench by himself at lunchtime, often, or a break, and not too concerned whether he was part of that clique. And he was reading his Bible. I'd never seen anybody read a Bible before.
Really, because you grew up Catholic, like you were saying.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
so it's
if you're not a priest, what would you read? Why would you choose to read the Bible?
Right.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just found that kind of curious. Around that time, I started having this sense of guilt, of a sense of like the things I had done in my life. I just was very conscious of what was God's opinion of me. I don't know why that was suddenly clear in my mind. It was, if I had to face him, I don't think I knew I wasn't ready. And this weight, it became like this, just this crushing weight I was carrying with me. And I remember really walking down the halls of the animation building, and everybody would be kind of talking and joking as they're heading down to their offices. And I'd see in their eyes, a freedom and joy. And I wasn't appreciating this anymore, though I was learning from Eric and Ollie. And I was like, why is everybody else able just to not worry about this? What's my problem? And I thought, well, maybe I just need to connect back to church. So I went to the Catholic Church, St. Charles, down in North Hollywood, and I went to confession and to talk to the priest. And for those who are not Catholic, you walk into this little booth, and there's a little door that kind of opens up, a little window. You hear, and it's just dark in there. But now this kind of like red light comes through, and you can see the shadow of a priest in there. And he says something, and I say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned, and it has been, you're supposed to say, how many months since your last confession? And I'm sure that was the first thing I did, was add another lie to that, because I said, it's been like a year, and I knew it had been like right. 5 years or whatever. And so I confessed my sins to him. And he listened. He said, well, Glenn, for your penance, you say so many prayers, Our Fathers, Hail Marys, Glory Bees, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I came out, and I spent some time in the church there saying these prayers, and then left, and I really did feel free. I just felt liberated. Mm-hmm. And went back home that night, was laying in bed, and this thought hit me. What gives that priest the right to tell me my sins are forgiven?
Or the authority, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The authority, yeah. What? And I'd been separated from, I hadn't been to the Catholic Church in so long, I no longer was trusting in this organization, this church any longer.
You're questioning.
And suddenly the weight was back, except heavier, much heavier. Now, not even the church could help me. And I was back at Disney, and I was like, what in the world am I going to... I really did not know what I was going to do, because now I was thinking about this all the time. Well, at that time, they took our group of trainees and they split us into twos. And I got put in the room with Ron Husband. And I saw his Bible there on his desk. And so I said, Ron, I see you reading your Bible. What does it say about how I know that I can be right with God? Or what does it say about having forgiveness? I didn't even know what words to use. And he said, well, to tell you the truth, I'm just discovering this myself, because I've been going to this Jehovah's Witness church. But he said,
was raised in that Jehovah's Witness?
No, but he had been
going.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what's right when you don't really know.
Right.
And so he had been reading the Bible, though, to see if what they were teaching was accurate. And he was realizing that, Glenn, you don't earn your way into God's favor. You can't make him, you can't prove how good you are. I've been finding that it's through Jesus. He paid the price for our sins, and it's not something that you can earn.
Right.
And Catholicism had always seemed to me about kind of earning something. And he said, so I'm finding that I've been wrong about this whole thing with this Jehovah's Witness group and whatever, but the Bible here, and he says, here, and he pulled out this little Bible that I think he took out of a hotel or something. And he gave it to me and he said, "Here, read this. Read John 3:16." So I took it with me, and I remember that at lunch that day, going across the street, there was a Jack in the Box on the corner of Alameda and Buena Vista. Mm-hmm. So I walked across the crosswalk, got my Jumbo Jack, and I'm walking back, and I've got this little green Gideon's Bible, and I opened it to John 3:16, and I'm reading it, crossing the street by Hamburger. And as I'm reading those words, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but has everlasting life." And by the time I got to the sidewalk, across the other side, it was like, I believe this. That
Wow.
It's hard to say how that happened, but suddenly there was substance to faith. It said, whoever believes, I can believe this. I do believe this. My life, actually, at that point, I transferred my dependence from me to him. And it was based on those words. Something in me knew that there was truth in this, and I believed it. I didn't completely understand it. But from that point on, then Ron and I started, just as we would animate, we'd talk about the Bible, the things that we were learning. And I would come in, and Ron Husband, he's a black guy who he was
First African-American animator, right?
Yeah.
Disney.
Yeah. And he'd say to me, "What's the word, Jack?" when I'd walk in. And I'd tell him something that I was reading.
It's Glenn, okay, Ron? We've been sharing this office for years.
Well, I called him Huz. And so, we just had the great time because we both connected with football. I was going to play football for Arizona State, and he had played football for Nevada. And we would wrestle and fight, and just constant, just extremely physical, combative relationship Huz and I would have. And they'd come in and they'd see this white guy, this black guy just wrestling and knocking each other down and knocking over chairs in our room. And it was like, whoa, what's going on here? And we're just having fun. We're just a couple football players, A
lot of testosterone in that room.
There was a lot of testosterone. But we, along with a guy, Danny Ortiz, who was, I think he was working in sound, we started a Bible study there at the studio. And every once a week we'd get together, and that's how I grew there. So,
you must have had some deep conversations with Ron Husband, besides just the, grabbing about and, flopping around the room. While you're animating and making these cartoons, you're also talking about deeper things too, right?
Oh, yeah. There's something wonderful about animation. You're drawing, but your brain is flying.
Yeah.
There's a voice talking the whole time you're animating, and you may even forget what the heck you're animating because you're having a conversation about somebody else. And our conversations, instead of spent, those mental conversations often are about gossip, or you're angry at somebody. And,
right.
When you're
deadlines
in your head, there can be a lot of bad conversations you have going on in your head.
Sure.
Ours were often about what does this verse mean here in Philippians, where it says, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ. What does that mean? And so he would be talking and I would be talking. It was absolutely the greatest growing discipleship time that both he and I were having together. As we grew through those years, also learning animation at the same time.
That's amazing.
How long did that last? How long were you guys roommates?
We were roommates for probably 3 years, something like that.
Okay.
And then Frank ended up with Ron as his assistant, and Ollie ended up with me as his assistant. And so we were both just down the hallway from Frank and Ollie as well as we continued that. So, so Ron is still the guy I count as my closest friend.
And this would take you now, is this around this time then? Are you starting to wonder about how do I show my faith in some way? I guess I'm working towards the Adam Raccoon books.
Yeah.
Was that kind
how
of
did
an
that come about?
outward progression of wanting to share your faith in some way?
Well, as I was reading the Bible, I was finding how it was dealing with the deepest parts of my soul, and life after death, and it had such incredible weight to it, and there was like no religious aspect to it. It was just pure and wonderful truth. Very much like as an animator, when I was studying figure drawing the figure was like, this is truth. This is actually humbling to draw a living being in front of you. You feel genuinely humbled by the beauty of that figure.
Right. Because you're
And
taking
it was the
it
same,
all in, right?
same kind of thing. When I was reading the Bible, it was like humbling. This is truth, and except in a bigger, grander, infinitely more grand way. And I thought, okay, so what does animation have to do with this, all this that I'm reading? And I started thinking, I think I made the wrong choice. I shouldn't be in animation. I really want to go to seminary.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought what I'd like to do is to be a pastor. And I've always been somebody that can't not share the truth that I've discovered. And if it's in my art, I have to grab somebody down the hallway and tell them, look at this, look at what we just discovered in drawing here in animation. Or I had to grab people, and I did that all the way through.
Well, you're a teacher at heart, really. I've always thought of you as a teacher.
Well, yeah, and I think and Tom and I know this from being under you and being, some of those kid animators growing up, looking up to you, is that you were always so exuberant and you were always so full of life about the truths that you were learning in art, and like you said, you were so excited to share those truths, and which made you a great and inspiring teacher. And we've seen that most people know that element about you from the art side. But what's great is to hear also from the faith side, too, that you were so excited to share these truths that you were learning in the Bible, too.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but share them with people. Came into my office. I mean, it was... some people didn't want to hear that. Some people did like to hear that. Did you get the
reputation of being, Glen's that new Christian guy?
Yeah, and I mean, I started a little Bible study with some of the animators, and we would walk to the back lot and... just read the Bible and go through a study book, and we do that at break time. And I remember some of the other artists just seeing us walking past, and one of the guys just saying, "Jesus hates you," to that little group of us walking out there. And it's like, okay, well, I know he's uncomfortable about this, and I'm not going to throw it in his face at all, but you just didn't want to stop doing it because somebody else felt uncomfortable about
peer
it.
Pressure.
It was, I was growing. It was like, okay, can you stop a tree's roots from taking in the water by the stream? You can't make that happen. That is going to happen. And I was growing. But I felt that there was something bigger calling me. So I talked to my pastor, Pastor Don Botsford at the time, up at Church of the Canyons, an evangelical free church in Santa Clarita. And I said, Don, I'm thinking of leaving Disney to go to seminary.
And when was this? Like around what film?
This was right around The Fox and the Hound.
Okay.
Beginning of it. And he said, Glenn, I got a confession to make. Okay, so I'm a pastor, right? When I talk about God, everybody expects me to.
Right.
I secretly wish that I was a lawyer, because then if I talked about my faith, people go, "What? Lawyer talking about his faith? Come on, that's what?" He said, but with me, they turn on their church ears and it kind of almost bounces off. Yeah. But you have an opportunity. You're an animator. I think God has you there for a reason. I think you should really stay.
Wow, that was really wise of him to say.
Yeah. So I did. I stayed, and instead of leaving Disney to go to seminary, I stayed at Disney, kept growing as an animator, as an artist, but I looked for the first opportunity I could to teach, and it was at junior church. Mm-hmm. So I would, with the little kids, I would go in there, and there's a whole bunch of 4-year-old to 6-year-old kids, and I started doing stories for them.
Now, wait, was this little Claire and little Max, or was this before they were born?
This is with Claire and Max. Yeah,
okay.
They were little, and so I continued to do that, but I wanted to do something that was a little more serious in my storytelling. I thought it would be fun to do to illustrate. I'd been reading this Christian author. His name was Henry Brandt, and he was a Christian psychologist, and I loved his writing. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll do some drawings to illustrate one of his books. So my wife and we drove down to meet he and his wife. I forget where it was, San Bernardino or somewhere. He was out visiting. And so I met with him and told him, I've got these drawings here. I'd love to illustrate one of your books. And he said, wow, these are wonderful. He doesn't know what kind of an opportunity this is. I'm just going to throw in here and say that. I hope he didn't turn Glen Keane down. Well, actually, he didn't really jump at it. But his wife said, I think we should just pray. I think we should just pray right now. And so we did. And she just prayed a very simple prayer, asking God to open a door for me to use my talents in a way that I was desiring for him. Mm-hmm. So Linda and I drove back home. We're driving home, and that night, I know it's nighttime. Driving down the freeway, and I'm thinking, oh man, tomorrow morning I have daily vacation Bible school, and I got to speak to several hundred kids, and I have no idea what I'm going to do at 9:00 the next morning. And so I'm driving, and I'm thinking, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, John 3:16, the verse that meant so much to me. I want to talk about Christ's sacrifice for us. And so I came up with this idea of the woods, Master's Woods, and a lion. At that time, he was called King Emmanuel. Okay. And Adam Raccoon. It could be like us. And there's this river, the river of life, and it goes down to Forever Falls, and this lion has to save this little raccoon after the raccoon disobeys and ends up in Tempting Pond. And I had all of this stuff worked out by the time I got home. And so the next morning I got up at like 4 a.m. and drew it all up on a big sketch pad and then presented it. And then the next day, then I go into work and I'm animating and driving home like, oh man, I got another story. I got to come up with another one, because this was all week long, daily vacation Bible school every day. And that's where all the first books every day was another Adam Raccoon story.
Oh my God. Just come up with a new subject, right? That you wanted to address? Yeah.
So actually the first book, Forever Falls, and it's dedicated to, in memory of Marcy Brandt, who died the year these books actually came out.
Oh, really? But yeah, I put the dates on there. Glenn is actually physically picking up my version of the books that I bought. The first one came out in 1987, and you signed them to me too in 1991.
Oh, yeah. That was incredibly encouraging to me to meet you, Tony and Tom, who have the same faith, and yet we're animators. You didn't feel so alone in this, and you realized that there was this wonderful impact.
This cannot be, because this is the story that we wanted to tell you. Is that it was the opposite. It was your encouragement and you talking about your faith and being ahead of us that really inspired Tom and I to be more open in our faith. So
we're gonna end up on the ground if you say, you guys remind me of a little Glen.
We may die. We may die right now. Yeah.
And here, I want to jump in and just say, I remember that the way we found out about the Adam Raccoon books was, and obviously we were older, we're too old for like little children's books like this, and didn't have kids of our own. We were just brand new at CalArts. So this was 1988. We were probably 19 years old or so. And we had heard about these books because I think we heard about them at CalArts, just because
somebody had them. Yeah,
great Glen Keane. Yeah, and actually the guy that I think showed them to us, if I remember right, was not a believer at all. He just liked your artwork, right? And he was showing us these books, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, Glen's a Christian! Wow, this is amazing!" And so, because we already were huge fans, that's one of the reasons we went to CalArts, was to be a little Glen. And so we called around and found out that there was a Christian bookstore somewhere near CalArts, up in the hills there. And we went out there with a group of CalArts people because it spread really quick that, oh my gosh, these books, because the books had been out for maybe the first one or two had been out for a year or so at that point. And so we went out there and we bought out all their stock of Adam Raccoon books that day.
Thank you.
Yeah, so at least there you did really well.
And it took me, I've had these books, like Tom said, since I went to CalArts, but it took me years before I got the courage to come into your office and tell you how much these books meant to me. So it wasn't until fast forward 1991, we're working on Beauty and the Beast together. Well, you're really working on Beast, and I'm working on Little Cogsworth and Lumiere and running after the Beast up the stairs as a junior animator. And I just remember you were so gracious to, not only invite me into your office, but also talk about your faith and what it meant to you. And wow, what an inspiration it was for Tom and I, separately or individually, but also together when we talk about it, just to know that there was a Christian out there that was really practicing his faith, really what it says in the Bible, like you said, those truths that you learn, you're putting them to practice. You were really the kind, gentle, loving, caring, leader that you were at Disney, and it really meant a lot to us. We learned from you. You learn about art, you learn about leadership, and you learn what it is to be a man of faith. And it's kind of a trifecta of everything that we wanted to learn at that time, needed to learn at that time. So I guess,
thank you so much for
we're going to come out on the podcast and just start weeping now. But just want to tell you how much that meant to Tom and I. But I also know that so many people you've affected by your outward display of faith. You met my production assistant, Dylan Holden, I've been working with on this project recently. And he wanted me to tell you, he was so nervous, he couldn't say it earlier. But he too has, when he learned that, first he learned that Tom and I were Christians through the podcast. And then when he learned that you were a Christian too, it meant so much to him to know that, some of the guys that he idolized in animation had faith, and that they were open and not kind of shrinking away like the world so often, I think, pushes Christians into a hole of, this is who you are and this is what they are. And it's a negative hole for the most part. But,
well, I first of all, thank you, Tony and Tom, for inviting me on to share my faith, because that's, not an easy thing for you guys to put your show out there for this. Mm-hmm. Because there's something that happens, and you get lumped in with a lot of odd, weird people that, in the name of Christianity, you now got that rep,
right? Yeah.
When I was one of the reasons I really enjoyed going out to Paris and working there.
Oh yeah,
at the Paris
that was around the time of Pocahontas, or before that?
It was after Pocahontas for Tarzan.
Okay,
yeah.
And working at that studio. I continued to, my faith just continued to grow. So they kind of knew somehow that I was, a guy who believed in the Bible. And I remember one day, one of the guys coming into my office, and, he said, "So, I understand you are a, somebody that reads the Bible. I said, yeah. Oh. So do you really think that, like, God exists? I said, yes, I do. Like right now, he's in the room listening to us talk. And I said, no, that's true. Yes. I've never met anybody like that. So you actually believe this? I said, yeah, I do. Huh. He just walked out. And I thought, this is so wonderful because I'm not like, well, then he must be a Republican. Oh, he must be part of a fundamentalist group. Or no, it was just purely like, so you believe in this creator that is invisible. Yeah. I mean, it was just like this really pure, perfect.
Yeah, it's like a basic concept. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved that. I remember, though, at another time on Pocahontas, I was animating. I had an assistant animator working with me, and he would come in and just had so much criticism against Christianity and would talk to me about why it was such a naive, pathetic thing to believe.
Really? He's a pretty brave guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was, well, I enjoyed our conversation. So, I mean, I think he felt safe. And finally, one day he said, okay, Glenn, what I don't understand, this guy was very expressive, is you do this animation that's like, I want to animate like that. It's just, and on one hand, I really want that. And how can somebody who does what you do, on one hand, be so naive to believe what you believe? I don't understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he, what can you say? I just look, they're both based on truth, that's what it is. But it was a wonderful encouragement that my pastor gave, that there was a future. He didn't know what it would be, but working at Disney allowed me opportunities to express my faith in ways that I never would have imagined. From moments where people are hurting, coming into your office, you talk to them. Somebody's going through a divorce. Somebody's, struggling with cancer. Somebody's, there's so many things that it's not just about, getting footage done. And when that would happen, I would think, okay, well, no, this is why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, can you go a little deeper? Because I think I've heard you talk a little bit about this before, but not everyone listening may know this. But as a supervising animator at Disney for many years, one of your jobs was to animate the character, but also to create their character design, right? That's part of the job. And you're very good at it. We've heard you have a spiritual symbolism. I think I've heard you say this in an interview before, that you attribute to all the characters you've animated at Disney. Do you have sort of a backstory to them that you want to share with us? I think people would be really interested to hear sort of what your thought process is with Beast and his sort of spiritual life too, and Ariel and some of these characters. Yeah,
well, they became reflections of deeper truths. I think of truth as like, it's like a river that just goes underground. You don't see it, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And it comes up particularly in creativity, in art and music. Mozart was writing to this wonderful river of truth, and whether he believed in God or not, it didn't matter. There's a verse that says, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights.
Yeah.
So every creative, beautiful act that you're doing is somehow connected to him. So anyway, as I would be animating, this idea of a mermaid longing to live in this world that's above. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. She can't even breathe the air. She can't even walk on the streets. she's just not made for that. And yet she can't help believe that she is. And so you animate this song, part of your world. And it's so much about spiritual longing, to believe that the impossible is possible. And I feel like the characters that I've loved to animate have got that spark inside to believe the impossible is possible, which is very much true with my faith that all things are possible through.
So you're saying when you were animating Ariel, and there's that great shot in the movie where, and I think you storyboarded it, so I'm sure it came from your pencil, where it's like a down shot, and we're looking through the little cavern hole, and she's reaching out, and her hand is extended out towards the camera and has perspective. Was there, when you were animating that and coming up and conceiving that shot, was there a feeling then of kind of a grasping towards God or a longing for something more than what she was, right?
Well, to be honest, at that moment, I was filled with, I can only say, a fear of being embarrassed about that moment.
Why is that?
Well, you guys know how it is. You are the character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm 33-year-old guy, and now I'm a 16-year-old mermaid. And I am Ariel.
Yeah.
And as I'm animating this, I knew what she wanted to do, which was to swim straight to the camera and reach out to the audience, and then in wonderful, in Jodie Benson's wonderful voice, she's, she drifts back down.
Right, and you hear this exhale.
Yeah,
she goes down.
I was like, oh man, I couldn't. And I thought, oh, everybody's going to know what a sappy, cheesy guy I am to have this moment where she's reaching out to be part of that world. It's like, oh no, I can't do that. But I couldn't stop her. She did it anyway. So I animated this hand going out, and it was like, okay, all right, everybody knows this is me. Well, years later at Cal Arts, I was showing this sequence, the pencil version of that, where Ariel reaches out. Actually, it was before I showed that to the Cal Arts students, but this girl came up to me, one of the animation students, and said, Mr. Keane, I have to tell you that there's a moment in your animation that I will never forget. I was 4 years old, and it was in The Little Mermaid, and you probably don't remember it, but there's this moment where Ariel reaches out to the audience, and I said, oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
She said, well, when that came on, I was sitting in back of the movie theater. It's only 4. And when Ariel reaches out, she said, I stood up and I reached my hands out so I could take her hands and pull her because she wanted to be part of my world. And it was so,
that is so sweet.
It was so real to her.
Yeah.
And it connected in such a deep way. And I think that's how truth works. It doesn't work in some really, theological way. It just connects to you in a very genuine way. And the things I think that I'm describing to you now, like when I look back on that, animating that, I see that that's what was happening. But I got to say, I don't think I really understood the impact of that.
Yeah.
Of really what was happening until I looked back and said, that was a gift.
Yeah.
That was grace.
Well, what you thought was maybe over dramatic, right? You thought it was overplayed or over dramatic, has touched a generation of girls that are teenagers that have that longing to be part of something else, something more than what they are.
And Tony, 20-year-old twin boys.
Yeah, that's true.
21.
The Bancroft brothers definitely wanted to be there.
But now, Glenn, what's the story with Beast then? Because obviously with the transformation, that had to have a powerful analogy for you.
Yeah. Well, I'd been listening to Beethoven's Ninth, and in the fourth movement, there's this ethereally beautiful section where, as Beethoven's lyrics in that song are to look, to realize that surely there must be a creator that lives in the heavens, and that this kiss is for all mankind. And this is what is in that song. It's in German, but that's what he's singing. And I listened to that. I was like, oh, I love this music. And I want to animate, Beast's transformation to that. But it came down to, I'd wasted all my time on goofing around shooting ham sandwiches with a slingshot across the building, and I don't know, goofing around or whatever.
I remember when you guys were doing those things.
And I was down to 1 week left on production, and I had not gotten into the thing that I was most looking forward to, which was the whole transformation thing.
Yeah.
And I was so frustrated and angry, and Don Hahn came into my office and he said, "So, Glenn, I hear you're kind of frustrated." I said, "Yeah, Don. I mean, look, I can't do this in 1 week, and yet I've been living my whole life to do this." Yeah. And he said, "All right, look, don't worry. You take the time, do what you need to do to make this really true and personal and great. Just take the time you need.
That's a great producer.
I will figure it out."
Wow.
And so I got up and I left the work. I'm just going to go to the Norton Simon Museum. Yeah. So I drove over there, and I started walking up to the museum. But before you get to the museum, there's this sculpture of Rodin's The Burghers of Calais, which are just these great figures in kind of sort of a incredibly tortured, sort of mentally struggling, because they're actually, these figures are giving their life. I mean, the story of the Burghers of Calais, behind that, these are the leaders of the town that are willing to sacrifice themselves so everybody in the town can live. And there's about, 7 figures that are walking there. So as I started walking around, I just looked at the emotion in these. And so I started to draw them. And I noticed the way Rodin drew their back, like it was like canyons. I mean, they were just like a back. It was like landscape.
The two muscle forms were making it. Yeah.
So the hands and the feet and everything was like super weight and strong.
Those gnarled hands.
Oh gosh,
right?
Just amazing. So I never even got into the museum. I just did drawings there, and then I drove back as fast as I could, started thumbnailing. Like, I know I want to see the Beast's back. I'm going to have him turn. And for me, I'd always, everything I've animated, I've turned it in space to prove to everybody that this is not a flat drawing. It's a dimensional.
Right.
Yeah. You can touch its form. And so having him turn and this idea that he is wrapped in this cocoon. I mean, his cloak becomes like a cocoon, and it was an expression of, in the Bible, it says, "If any man is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new," like a butterfly coming out of the cocoon. So that's what I was drawing. And I wrote that verse down on one of the drawings or the exposure sheet. I'm not sure, but I remember writing it down there on the work itself, wanting it to go and live on for whatever it is in the Disney archives. Yeah. But that's what it was in my imagination. It was me in this process of becoming what God had intended me and intends me to become. It's a process, and one day to become like Christ. And when I was a kid, I had the worst temper.
Really?
Oh man,
that can't be. You're too nice of a guy.
I threw stuff around and smashed them. I really related.
Redhead, right? You're a redhead.
Yeah, redhead, Irish kid. Irish Australian. My mom's Australian.
Oh, there you go.
And I just had this bad temper, and so I really related to the Beast and animating him from that. I mean, I remember my mom coming by my bedroom when I was a little kid, and I'd be in one of my fits of rage, and she'd say, "Is that my little Glennie?"
That would drive you nuts, right?
Oh, that would make me even more angry. So that was the transformation that I experienced.
I remember there was a lot of effects in that scene too, in that transformation. There was a light that comes from
light coming out of his fingers,
coming out.
Yeah,
was that part of that too? Did you come up with that, or is that effects animators that came up with that?
For me, I wasn't sure what they were going to do with the light. I think some of the storyboard were showing some light, so I knew that was going to happen. But what wasn't there was the wind. The wind is. I'd animated it without the wind, and it was missing something. It was missing this spirit.
Yeah,
and so started to animate this wind coming straight up and seeing his hair moving, and that's what made the whole thing alive. And it's something that I found through each of the characters. The hair of a character reflects something of who they are. There's uniqueness to them. For Pocahontas, the hair was an expression of her spirit. It was when it was moving, you could see this spiritual character. She's a very spiritual character.
I often say, Glenn, just so you know, that in Pocahontas, her hair was the co-star of the film.
Yeah, it was something absolutely gorgeous.
I have a drawing by Tom Bancroft of Pocahontas on my wall right there.
I saw that.
Glenn's going to go over that in a little bit.
No,
put it back on model.
That was
really nice. It's beautifully on model.
Well, that was me copying your drawings.
Yeah. You probably went over one of your keys.
Yeah, I'm a good tracer. Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to diss my brother for a moment.
Yeah, no, that was improper timing, Tony. Well, let's bring it back to. Those are beautiful stories, and man, this is just amazing too. And we are starting to get to the point where you have to start wrapping up. But I do want to say a personal thank you, Glenn, because back to the Adam Raccoon books. You know, before we started, you met Emma and Ellie, my two twins that are 15 now. But I showed them while we were on Skype your books, the Adam Raccoon books that I have here. And I've had them since before they were born, like we were saying. We got them when we were 19. And I read those books to them. And they remember those books fondly. All four of my girls have grown up with me reading the Adam Raccoon books. And it was such a special... time. I don't want to get too emotional here, but it was a special time for us as a family, and as me being able to share my faith, and also just loving looking at the drawings over and over again. Of course, the geek in me, but it was a special time, and I just want to say a special thank you, and I know Tony feels the same way, that us being able to share our faith with our girls, because Tony has 3 girls, was through those books was like. Life-changing, really. I mean, for our family, and I just want to thank you for that.
It means a lot to me to hear that. Thank you.
Well, I know, and you must have had have you seen an impact from doing Adam Raccoon over the years? Have people come up to you? I know you get that from Beast and Ariel and the Disney films, but this is something very personal to you. Are there people that have come up to you and talked to you about the impact of Adam Raccoon?
Yeah, everywhere I go.
Really?
And it's always at the most awkward moment.
In the bathroom?
Always in the bathroom?
No, it's always in a very public setting where I'm at MoMA. And there's all the intellectual, artistic crowd is around, and they're all standing there after some speech I've given, and there's somebody, it's got the Adam Raccoon book. Oh, Mr. Keane, you've done this Adam Raccoon book. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your faith. Can you just talk a little bit about your love for God and what that means to your work? And there's, it's like,
it changes.
Can we do this like privately? Do you have to make me do this like now in front of everybody? Because there is part of us that somehow we care more about what the world thinks of us than what God thinks of us. And
right.
And it's so easy to fall into that. And this idea of loving God to the point that, as in Psalm 16, it says, I said to the Lord, you are my Lord, and apart from you, I have no good thing. That he is the source of our art. He is the source of our every heartbeat. Mm-hmm. And that we live to please him. And for somebody to come up and say that in the middle of a crowd, you are right then making a choice. No, I'm living for God. It's Christ in me, the hope of glory that is animating me. And now I'm 62. I don't know. I mean, I had a heart attack in 2008, but now it's 2017.
Yeah.
And I'm just really thankful I'm still here. And I want to be here till I'm 120. I want, with our grandkids and, but I'm just really thankful for the life that I have. And I'm just going to keep growing as an artist. Leaving Disney is been a challenge, trying to figure out how do you survive outside of Disney, I mean, you guys are doing great. You're continuing to do something that you love. And that's what, we're blessed.
We really are. And that's a good segue because we did want to ask you a little bit about, you're doing a short right now, or you just finished a short rather. And you and I talked about it when I saw you at the Annie Awards. And it's a short that you did with Kobe Bryant, the famous basketball player.
Yeah.
Here you grew up with football, you were saying, but you somehow got turned into basketball there with that. Now that short is going to be coming out it was just announced, I think, a week ago. Tribeca Film Festival is going to be premiering that short.
Yeah.
Are you going to be going to that? And what does that short mean to you?
Well, I mean, Kobe is a fan of animation. And he had seen the short film that we had done for Google, Duet. And so he asked if I would animate it. And he also asked his friend John Williams to do the music.
Wow.
The trifecta of people.
I know.
Glen Keane, John Williams, and Kobe Bryant.
It was really an incredibly wonderful experience. Last week we were at the recording session with John Williams, who is truly an amazing, humble man. He's 85 years old.
Wow.
He just finished writing the score. He wrote every instrument, 80 instruments. Finished it on Saturday. I think it was Tuesday. There's all the musicians. They just got the score that morning. And John Williams stands up, never having heard it, starts to conduct it. It had only played in his head.
Right.
Wow.
And it was so beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And Kobe was sitting next to me, and I did a little sketch it's on...
I saw it. It's on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. Mm-hmm. And Kobe's got his eyes closed, and John Williams is conducting, and Kobe and I just kept looking at each other, shaking our head like, I can't believe life can be this wonderful. It was really, really incredibly... and that whole letter that Kobe wrote to your basketball, he's so vulnerable, opening himself up to write a letter about how much this sport has meant to him, thanking it, and such courage to write that. But in animating it, I got a chance to draw in a very kind of classical style, more rendering than you're not drawing the outline as much as the light. Oh. You're really drawing light. I mean,
Were you using charcoal or what kind of medium?
No, it's the same pencil that Miyazaki uses. It's a Mitsubishi pencil, a 10B.
10B?
It's really, really soft.
Man.
I actually bought one of those because you talked about it on the last podcast, so I thought, I got to try one of these Mitsubishi 10Bs. And it falls apart in my hand. I can't even...
He hasn't used it once.
Did you do it? Did you try it?
Yeah, I tried it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm horrible with it.
Oh, well... You get better at it. Yeah, just keep doing it.
All right.
Yeah. now, Glenn, that short is called Dear Basketball, and it was Kobe's love letter to basketball. It was for his retirement, right? He was kind of summing up his feelings.
He wrote it last
for Sports Illustrated, if I remember right. They published it originally, and
Yeah.
and it went viral, and that's what has kind of brought this short around, right?
That's
we
right.
Created. Now, can I just throw down a little challenge to you, Glen Keane?
Yes. Go ahead,
Can I be
Tom.
so bold?
Yeah. Don't agree to anything before he says it.
No. I want you to write a love letter to animation soon.
Oh,
Yikes.
And
yeah.
maybe it's an animated love letter to animation.
Do I ask Kobe to animate it?
Yeah.
I don't know. But John Williams is doing the music for sure.
Yeah. You got to get it done quick, though. But yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. That was sacrilege.
I don't know what it is, but
Well,
maybe you've already done it. Maybe here's the bigger question. Maybe you've already done it. What is the crowning achievement of your career so far?
Oh, man, I hope it's still to come.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, too. Yeah.
Yeah. I was fascinated with John Williams' life, meeting him, talking to his assistant yesterday, I just pummeling him with questions. We were flying back from Skywalker Ranch where we mixed the sound yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I said, so what's it like working with John? He said, John is a very disciplined man. His life is very regular, always does the same things. And he writes score in the living room, and upstairs the assistant is. And he thinks deeply about it, but he thinks about his music when he's playing golf. His life is very regular. He's 85. There's this calm about him.
Yeah.
I want somehow, how can an animator's life be like that? I mean, we live in this art form where you have to create every image, so many images over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. The only way that you can actually do that is by being so much a part of what you're animating that it's just flowing from you. And otherwise it's a chore. It's a burden. It can't be a burden, or else you've got to love this art form. I want to keep loving it. I think it's why I still draw with the pencil. There's something about the tactile feel that I really like about it, though I'm also getting into drawing in virtual reality and trying to figure out how do you draw in space? How do you actually animate in space like that? In 3D. And that's really appealing to me as well. But I want to keep growing and pushing myself that way. But I'm also torn because now we've got 4 grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And I love spending time with them.
Sure.
You don't want to work, right?
I don't want to work.
Yeah.
I want to, but our grandkids are drawing like crazy. Because everybody in the Keane family, that's what we do. Everybody's doing some artwork of some sort, and they see that, so they're drawing. It's just continuing to expand. My influence was one artist with my dad, and now our grandkids have got like 8 artists around them that are doing
amazing.
That.
Wow.
Yeah. So I want to make choices to have time.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, you can't. It's hard for Tom and I on this little humble podcast to really, sum up the impact that you've had on animation. And I know it's hard for you, but just to hear you say, where you're at right now, that you feel like there's more to come, the best is yet to come, and you want to keep striving and keep growing. That's a huge encouragement to the listeners out there, to Tom and I. So I appreciate you saying that. I want to give a little plug too for, Green Egg Media has the Adam Raccoon books out again. So we mentioned before that they were originally published when Tom and I got them earlier on, like in the mid-90s. Well, they're back again. Green Egg Media is a new Christian publisher that has taken all of those original 8 stories that Glen Keane produced way back when, and he's taken those wonderful Bible parable stories and republished them in a book set. And you can get there's actually some new material that you produce. Is that right for this?
Yeah,
there's. Set?
I changed some of the illustrations. I learned that I could have done this better, and so I redid some of the illustrations. But I'm wanting to do more of the stories as well.
Oh, are you? So
Yeah.
you're going to expand the series?
Yeah.
That's exclusive right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the plan. I drew like a little map on the opening of the book. It's on the opening in the back, and there's different locations in there that are places that I want stories to take place. You know, that
Yeah.
there's cascades, and there's a little harbor. There's a whole adventure that can take place there with Adam going out on a ship, and things I just want to do. And I still have a whole bunch of stories in my closet that I did from teaching Sunday school and daily vacation Bible school that somehow I want to get out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's good news for us. I mean, that means a lot to Tony and I know, because we're such huge fans of that book series. I'd love to hear that it might keep going.
And Adam Raccoon means so much to you because you've put so much time into it over a long duration, obviously. I would imagine, have you ever thought about doing anything more than a book, a short or a
I'm thinking
feature,
about, I mean, it would be
cartoon?
wonderful to do them in animation. You guys would be fantastic to animate.
Wouldn't we?
We're in.
We'll do it.
Okay, let's get the contract out right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Because
We'll do it digitally.
they could be done digitally.
That's right.
But you got to have this. See, that's the Mitsubishi 10B kind of pencil that the books have that kind of real textural
It does.
feel
And
to
I was
them.
going to ask you about that. I know this is a little
We got to
tangent,
replicate that.
But
yeah.
the books are drawn in a very energetic, quick, bold style, very cartoony, very broad lines, and there's a graininess to it. Is it because you did the drawings and then did you Xerox them later into like watercolor paper and then you watercolored them, or
onto Bristol board.
Oh, you did. So you did copy them, and because there's some that look like that looks like the line quality. It lost a little bit in the Xerox.
And sometimes it would actually break off the Bristol board, and that was always frustrating. And
is it because were you going pretty fast when you were making these? Because obviously you had a day job.
I was. I mean, because I would do these 4:30 in the morning, and I would finish them. Then the kids would get up, and then I'd be off to work, and you'd be animating, and then I'd come home, sometimes late at night. I mean, in your 30s, you could do that kind of stuff, or work till 3 in the morning, and but I can't do that now. I don't want to do that now.
Well, that's why you got to do animated shorts for continuing this series. So you could write it, you could direct it, you could design some characters, but we'll animate it. That's the hard work.
I like
you throw
that
at us youngins, okay?
Cool. Hey, thank you.
We're about to turn 50.
That just got so easy for you.
Yeah.
Now that we've announced that publicly, we have to do that.
I think we do.
All right, Tom,
okay,
you
so
want to tell the audience about the bonus offer that we have.
Yeah, thanks to Green Egg Media, we have a special offer exclusive to the Bancroft Brothers. Is that if you go to their website, which is just adamraccoon.com, and that'll take you right to where you can see the books and you can buy them, and that's Raccoon with 2 C's, just in case you don't know. So adamraccoon.com, you can go there, and when you go to purchase them, and they have a set of the whole thing, and if you use our code, we have a discount code, which is BBROS, capital B, ROS, and that'll give you free shipping on that order. So I think that's a good deal for people, and I hope that they'll take advantage of that, and like a whole new generation of people will kind of rediscover these Adam Raccoon books by you, Glenn. And they also have a special edition set that is a brand new print that you did, and I think you signed those, right? They're all autographed by you?
Mm-hmm.
Man,
and
that's
signed.
That's the
copy
set
of
I
the
want.
signature, but
Yeah.
signed. That's awesome.
So go there, get free shipping using the BBROS code at adamraccoon.com. And you can also go to greeneggmedia.com too. But I think adamraccoon.com sends you to Green Egg Media to buy it. So that is a good deal for our listeners, and I hope they take advantage of that.
Well, Tom, I think we've said Glen Keane, as we do in most podcasts, about 46 times in this one. So we've actually reached a record because we actually had Glenn on the podcast to say his name. So that's been special. But it's also been a really great podcast just to hear your heart personally, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so open and sharing with us today. We're really excited about these books as we've been pushing them only because they've been so influential in our lives, as we said. I hope that people really check them out themselves because they'll get a real deep flavor of who you are artistically and also spiritually too, what these books of faith really mean to you. So hopefully people will do that, and we're gonna sign off real quick for this the end of this podcast. But for the Patreon, we have a special Patreon page where people donate money so that we can do this podcast. They donate to the podcast, and we have a special quick 10 special questions just for Glen Keane that's going to be part of that exclusive extended version of the podcast. So I'm going to just close this by saying the quote that, I don't know if you know this, Glenn, but we say quote.
We stole it.
The end of every podcast, we end the same way. And it's a quote by Glen Keane that Tom has on one of the drawings that you signed for him. Do you have that on the wall, Tom?
I do. I can show.
What is it? Is it Pocahontas?
No, it's an Ariel drawing that you were about to throw away.
Oh, gosh.
Tom's got your trash drawing here.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that nice?
That is a nice drawing. Why was I going to throw that away?
You're like, hey, white. But what does it say, Tom? You didn't hold it up long enough.
Yeah, so it says to Tom, keep animating from the heart. And nice. I'm sure you've used that line a million times. I wasn't the only one to get it. But when we were making this podcast, we decided we wanted to have a sign-off that was kind of special to our podcast. And so
and this
I
is
looked
for the
up
animators.
Saw that framed picture of Ariel by Glen Keane. And so, Tony?
As we always say, animate from the heart.